But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Hello and welcome to a Wednesday Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Joe Ranieri. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We are fully into Super Bowl week. Today, the first day of practice reports in actual game week for Super Bowl 59 as the Super Bowl Sunday countdown tracker ticks down to only 4 days out from a Sunday evening in the Big Easy. We will go to NOLA throughout SportsGrid Super Bowl coverage, some interviews from a day on Radio Row to get you set for the biggest game of every single NFL season. A huge day in basketball yesterday. 7 games around the association. An introduction of Luka Doncic in Los Angeles, and a big Tuesday night slate in college hoops to break down as well. All of that, Joe, over these next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, and it's great, Ben, because I'm running out of room here. I need this game to hurry up because I keep making prop bets every day after this show, and I can't even keep track of what I've bet anymore at this point. But there is plenty more to get to when it comes to that big game.
Yes, there certainly is. We will continue to look at the matchup advantages for Super Bowl 59, where the numbers are right now, and some of those fun prop bets that you do not often get each and every week throughout an NFL season, only available for the biggest game of a year, that being a Super Bowl Sunday. But we start on a Tuesday night around the association, live right here on a Wednesday morning on the Early Line. Huge matchup in the Eastern Conference, as we detailed yesterday. A matchup of the 2 top teams out east, and 2 teams we probably anticipate seeing contend for an Eastern Conference crown in the Eastern Conference Finals come late May. That would be the reigning champs in the Boston Celtics and the NBA's best team entering Tuesday, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Basically closed at as a pick'em, Joe, in Cleveland, and the Cavaliers go down at home. The Celtics make a statement on the road, winning 112-105, winning 2 of 3 games, I should say, for Boston in this season. Series outright ever so slightly as an underdog on the road last night.
Yeah, and really it was all about that first quarter, Ben. A 28-15 run by the Celtics after the first quarter kind of dug too big a hole for the Cavs to be able to get back into it. They made it push in the second half, but when you can't go down almost 15 points after one quarter to the Boston Celtics, and that was kind of all she wrote in that game.
Just 14 cents separating the two teams on the money line by the time we got to tip yesterday in the land. But technically, Boston a slight 1.5 point dog. Just the third time this year the Celtics have been booked as an underdog. Their first outright victory and or cover as a dog this season. Big day in Los Angeles. First, in the early morning hours, Luka Doncic introduced as a Laker for the first time. Meeting with the media, was asked about his reaction to when he learned that he was dealt from Dallas, if he had given the Mavs any indication that maybe he would not sign the Supermax this summer, and thus they needed to make some moves. He said absolutely not to that, but called it a dream to play with LeBron. And then the Lakers, and now their crosstown rivalry against the Clippers at night, absolutely hammer the Clips on the road, technically, at the Intuit Dome. Outright as an 8.5 point underdog, as a 25-point win, with Luka Doncic sitting on the bench to watch LeBron James nearly pull off a triple-double.
Yeah, no, and another game that was pretty much decided in the first quarter, Ben, with the Lakers dropping 45 points. They came out firing. They dropped 45 points in that first quarter. Clippers were trying to hang in there, had 29, but really after that, that was about all she wrote in that game, too. It was over early in L.A.
Yeah, a big win for Los Angeles. There you see Luka Doncic on the bench for the first time. Not just Luka being out there on the bench and watching the first game officially as a Laker, but no Anthony Davis. So LeBron James said, don't worry, I got everybody. 26 points, 9 dimes, and 8 boards. A near triple-double, an actual triple-double for JoJo. Joel Embiid making his return for the first time since January 4th last night for the Philadelphia 76ers at home against the Dallas Mavericks. 29 points, 11 boards, and 10 assists for Joel Embiid as Philadelphia holds off Dallas 118-116.
Yeah, kind of looked like he didn't skip a beat there, but neither did Tyrese Maxey, who had 33 and 13 for the Sixers as well. I think we know who's got to pick up the scoring for Dallas. Kyrie was on fire, but unfortunately it wasn't enough, even though they scored almost 70 points in the first half. It was kind of a crazy back and forth early, and then JoJo and company took over in the third, and that was all she wrote.
Embiid missed 15 games since getting injured on January 4th, re-aggravating a knee/foot injury, and the Sixers were just 5-10 in that span. Even with the win last night, Philly still remains 9 games sub 500 at 20-29. Games leading scorer, Kyrie Irving, 34 points. Anthony Davis was taking in the festivities as well for the Mavericks last night. We have already seen some huge blockbuster trades in the week leading up to tomorrow's NBA trade deadline. Might we see more? The Suns visit the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. That's not the story. Kevin Durant downgraded to doubtful, listed with an ankle issue, but now trade rumors starting to swirl around KD, including, Joe, a possible reunion by the Bay with the Golden State Warriors.
Listen, after this past weekend, Ben, nothing would surprise me in the NBA. We talked about it yesterday. We said, is this it? It wouldn't shock us if another big name or two all of a sudden switched uniforms this year before the Thursday deadline, and Durant could very well be that next big name here. And I never thought I'd see it in an NBA trade deadline ever.
We thought Bradley Beal would be dealt. He seems unwilling to waive his no-trade clause. What does that mean for Jimmy Butler? just about 36 hours until that NBA trade deadline. Huge night in college basketball and a huge game inside Madison Square Garden. And in the world's most famous arena, St. John's matches the occasion. A 70-64 victory over Marquette. The Johnnies cover as a 2.5-point home favorite. A total of 147.5 does stay under. St. John's is 11-1, Joe, in the Big East, in pole position to claim the first regular season conference crown for the Red Storm in over 3 decades.
Listen, it was a fun game to watch. It was a very physical game to watch last night, Ben. I was still, and we talked about it, extremely confused with the total in that game and how it got bet up as high as it did. But those were two teams that went at it, and it really wasn't until the final couple of minutes in which that game was decided. But give credit to St. John's getting it done in the Garden.
We go from the Big East out to the West Coast in the Big Ten, and UCLA continues to be on a roll, make it 6 consecutive wins now for the Bruins as they upend number 9 Michigan State. UCLA was a 2.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, barely, but they got it done at home. Apparently UCLA out west, good. UCLA out east, not good.
Eric Daly for UCLA, a bucket in the final 10 seconds of regulation for the win. Andy Reid confirming he will return next season as the Chiefs head coach. Of course, just 4 days away from Super Bowl Sunday. Plenty of reaction around the NBA next.
Don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
What a week it has been in the NBA, and that could continue 36 hours away or so from trade deadline day in the association. That is tomorrow. And we also have some great NBA action and some marquee matchups that could be a prequel of what is to come later in April, maybe May, maybe for a conference championship. on the line. Last night in Cleveland, a potential Eastern Conference Finals preview between the Cavaliers and the Celtics. Boston, a slight underdog for only the third time this season. Cleveland, the best team in the NBA, the only at this juncture with 40 wins at that benchmark. It was basically a pick'em by the time we got to tip. About 14 cents of separation on the money line, but Cleveland a slight home favorite, so the C's go on the road and win outright. 112-105, staying well under a total of 238. Third game between the two top teams in the Eastern Conference this year. Boston has now won 2 of the 3, their first cover in these 3 games throughout the regular season, and a big victory last night, Joe, for the Celtics on the road.
It's interesting, too. Big problem for the Cavs last night, Ben, which is one keeping an eye on moving forward, is that Evan Mobley did not look good last night. He had a really, really rough night. And when you've got a 7'3" Porzingis who's almost impossible to defend, who can knock down shots from the outside like that, Mobley, 7 points on 3 of 14, didn't make an impact on the defensive end either. Now, granted, he just got back from that calf injury, but it might take a little while for him to kind of get that explosiveness back. So it's worth keeping an eye on with him moving forward against some of these better teams, because without him, what you saw last night is very possible against teams like Boston. Before you know it, they don't know what hit them, and they can't get back into the game.
And that was the case last night. Started from the very jump, as Joe alluded to. Cleveland, one of the best cover teams in the NBA, let alone the best record in the NBA. Now 40-10, 30-16 against the spread as a favorite. The Celtics, just their third game this year as an underdog, 2 times out of those 3 against these Cleveland Cavaliers. Joe, they had not covered, let alone won outright as a dog so far this season in their opening 2 games. Last night, an outright victory, of course, ever so slightly on the road. So as we look at these 2 teams, still atop the Eastern Conference. Cleveland, of course, a historic start to this year and still maintaining 40-10, the overall record. Only team at the 40-win benchmark at this moment. We do expect Oklahoma City to join Cleveland in that distinction tonight. But you can still see Boston, the reigning NBA champions. They have been the title favorites, the Eastern Conference favorites all year long in minus money, Joe, for the last couple of weeks or so at minus 115 to win the East.
Yeah, it's going to come down to these 2 teams, Ben. I don't really – I think it's a 2-horse race here from what we have seen. I can't imagine although, listen, sorry, Knicks fans, it's been a nice little run here. But ultimately, I think there's levels to this. I think the Cavs and the Celtics, what you see last night is what you're going to get. I think it's going to be a 7-game series at some point here to decide who's representing the East in the NBA Finals.
So far, they have gone back and forth. Boston, the first win inside TD Garden. Cleveland held serve in game number 2 between these 2 top teams in the East on their home floor. Last night, the Celtics a victory in the land, picking up a big road win. But as you look at the Eastern Conference odds at the moment, 3 teams with 3-digit prices. The Celtics, as we really anticipated, minus money favorites, minus 115. Cleveland plus 330. The New York Knicks, plus 550. The Knicks, a 6-point win. Tight game last night in Toronto. New York comes out on top. We'll see if anybody can really challenge Boston atop the Eastern Conference, or maybe even provide a different sort of threat from beyond those 2 top teams. Let's go out to the Western Conference. Big day yesterday in Los Angeles. Luka Doncic introduced as a Los Angeles Laker for the first time, meeting with the media and capped up on a celebratory day in L.A. with a rivalry win for the Lakers, technically on the road, in the Intuit Dome against the Clippers. That was not the expectation, though, Joe. A victory for L.A., let alone a 25-point victory for the Lakers. They were an 8.5-point underdog in the Intuit Dome. They win outright against a Clippers team that entered 16-8 against the spread as a favored side. Big night for LeBron James in the absence of Anthony Davis, of course, no longer with the team, with Luka Doncic on the bench to take in the festivities. 26 for the King, 9-8 as well.
Yeah, and listen, it was just not a great night for the Clippers at all, who couldn't even break the 100-point mark there. And they had been really good at home, but this is another one where it was over early with the Lakers coming out, playing very loose, on fire. You drop 45 points to start the game in the opening quarter, Ben. You're playing catch-up the rest of the way, and that's not how the Clippers are built. The Clippers aren't built to come back from double-digit deficits that early. So it was advantage Lakers right after that first quarter, and they were hitting shots from all over the place, man.
Norm Powell, L.A., that being the Clippers' leading scorer last night, as we expected, but only 20 points. Still made 3 3-pointers, which is basically what he does night in, night out. 22 minutes for Kawhi Leonard, only 11 points. So a lot to love there for Luka Doncic, smiling on the bench and taking in a win for L.A. The Lakers now 10 games above 500, 29-19, 12-9 against the spread as an underdog. Flip that record around, 9 outright victories as a dog for the Lakers. Luka's former team, the Dallas Mavericks, making some more moves yesterday. Caleb Martin, now a member of the Mavs, against the Philadelphia 76ers. But in the return of Joel Embiid for the first time in over a month, he goes off for a triple-double. The Sixers edge out the Mavericks at home. Plenty more NBA reaction later in the show. Let's talk some college hoops up next. I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
You know, they have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Just another Tuesday night in college basketball, but now in the month of February, dotted with ranked teams in action in a couple of monumental games, including one at the world's most famous arena inside Madison Square Garden. Number 12, St. John's. Number 11, Marquette. Perhaps the biggest game for St. John's men's basketball at MSG in a very, very long time, as the Johnnies continue to hope to make history this year for the first time in a very, very long time. A 70-64 win for the Red Storm at home, covering as a 2.5-point favorite. Joe, there was a total for this game at 147 and a hook. It was on the rise throughout the entirety of Tuesday. You and I both were like, this is the fourth most efficient defensive team in the country in St. John's, and especially in the second half when it mattered most. That's when Rick Pitino's Red Storm team came out to play. St. John's has won 9 consecutive games in Big East action for the first time in 40 years since 1984-85, at least 9 consecutive games in conference play. They are 11-1 in the Big East, hoping to take home their first regular season conference crown in Big East action in over 3 decades.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. You mentioned it, 9 straight, right? 15 of 16, Ben, and now 15-0 at home. And that Madison Square Garden crowd, whoo, they were involved yesterday. I think 17,000, Ben, were in attendance there. I even, watching it last night, I think I saw Aaron Boone. Why he still has a job, I have no idea, but that's another question. But he was in attendance there. So, yeah, playing in front of the high-profile folks in the Garden and to be that dominant there, which is, let's be honest, Ben, it's a pro arena. It's not a college arena, and they are handling business. This is very impressive what we're seeing from St. John's. Certainly, that's the kind of defense that wins championships.
Their 3 best players, Joe, I think you could argue for St. John's: Kadari Richmond, R.J. Lewis, Zuby Ejiofor. They all scored double digits in that starting lineup last night. Ejiofor, 13 points, 13 boards. R.J. Lewis, 17 points, 11 boards. Kadari Richmond, St. John's leading scorer, 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 dimes. A near triple-double to prevail for the Johnnies. Again, a huge victory for the Red Storm. They are now 11-1 in Big East play, looking to win at least a share of the Big East regular season title for the first time since 1991-92, the final year of Lou Carnesecca up in Queens. Rick Pitino, now in year number 2 at St. John's. He's a heck of a basketball coach. Huge win for St. John's at home. Joe, as we go elsewhere around the country, Kentucky's defense, oh boy, they're bad. 112th in efficiency in the country as they allow Ole Miss to score 98 at home last night. The Running Rebs cover as a 5.5-point favorite. A total of 158.5. Sky's over.
I mean, when you allow Ole Miss to drop 50 some odd points in the first half on you there, that tells you everything you need to know about Kentucky. And that's their biggest weakness this year. Not to mention, I mean, don't forget, Ben, a lot of that talent from Kentucky is at Arkansas. Calipari left with it. So it didn't leave them a ton. They brought a bunch of BYU players over with Mark Pope there, but it's not the same. Certainly not defensively, but it's what Auburn did last night once again, where they look unstoppable, Ben. I hate to tell folks, but they are blowing everybody out. It's not even remotely close.
I don't know where you can really poke holes in the Auburn Tigers' resume at this moment. A 28-point home win, covering as a 17.5-point favorite against Oklahoma. The Tigers, 21-1. They remain perfect in the gauntlet that is the SEC at 9-0. UCLA continues to be on a roll. 6 consecutive victories for the Bruins. They edge out number 9 Michigan State, who started perfect in the Big Ten at 9-0. Now dropped 2 straight out in Los Angeles against USC over the weekend. Last night inside Pauley Pavilion. Florida rallies in the second half to beat Vandy and cover as a 10.5-point favorite. Purdue on the road in Iowa City. A win and a cover against the Hawkeyes. in Wisconsin is a really good basketball team. Keep an eye on the Badgers. Plenty more on the early line. Up next. I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
You know, they have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Our Super Bowl Sunday countdown continues to roll on. We are now just 4 days away from Super Bowl 59. On a Sunday night in New Orleans at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Super Bowl 59 kicks off between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Where are the numbers in the biggest game of each and every season? We'll tell you in just a moment. Super Bowl 59 this year. Super Bowl 60 next year out in San Francisco, I do believe. And the odds, Joe, are already out for the 2025 NFL campaign. One of the reasons we are looking at these prices right now is because Andy Reid telling the media this week he is going to be back for 2025. The Chiefs could be looking for a four-peat, which of course would be history because no team in NFL history has ever won 3 consecutive Lombardi trophies. And the Chiefs will open, it does seem, as of this moment, next season as the Super Bowl favorites. That should not be overly shocking. 6-1 number, but only a $0.50 in front of the Baltimore Ravens at plus 650, who are 50 cents in front of the Philadelphia Eagles, who are playing in their second Super Bowl in the last 3 seasons at a 7-1 price. Joe, I don't think it's crazy to see the Chiefs at 6-1 or the Eagles at 7-1. Do you think it should be noted that the Ravens, with their lack of playoff success under Lamar Jackson, have the second best outlook to win a Lombardi trophy entry next year at this moment?
Well, Ben, listen, if the Chiefs win again, I'm going to find it very odd that any of those teams listed there are even on the same page or in the same breath as the Kansas City Chiefs, Ben. So if they end up three-peating, the Ravens, the Eagles, listen, you guys had all the chances in the world over the last couple of years to be able to take down the Chiefs, and you didn't. You shouldn't even be considered in the same price bracket as them if they're able to pull this off once again, Ben.
That's the thing, Joe. I don't have an issue with the Ravens having a short number to win Super Bowl 60 and confirmed in San Francisco. It's the fact they are only 50 cents back of Kansas City. I think there should be a couple of NFC teams sandwiched in between the Chiefs and the rest of the AFC as compared to the odds that we have here. Speaking of San Francisco, the team I'm most interested to see their offseason and what the outlook tends to be from the odds is a team the odds makers have always been optimistic about the last half decade in the NFL. The home team that at least will be hosting Super Bowl 60 next February. That would be the 49ers, who despite losing to the Chiefs for the second time in a 5-year window, opened up for this year as a favorite by themselves in front of Kansas City to win a Lombardi trophy in New Orleans. That, of course, the San Francisco 49ers. And Joe, despite a disastrous 6-win season for San Fran and a lot of questions to answer this offseason, the 49ers still the third best price out of the NFC, sixth best number on that board in terms of the Super Bowl 60 odds at 15-1.
Yeah, well, they might as well be 100-1 there, Ben. A lot of question marks regarding the 49ers moving forward there. Again, injury bug. I don't expect that to happen 2 times, but I'm just wondering in that 49ers organization, how many people are really sold on Brock Purdy? You got to ask yourself, and is Christian McCaffrey ever going to be 100%? A lot of concerns with what's going on with the injuries this year with him. And he ain't getting any younger, as much as I hate to admit it. So the window is closing quickly for the 49ers.
Robert Saleh back as the defensive coordinator. San Francisco now in the last 6 seasons has appeared in 4 NFC championship games, has reached the Super Bowl twice in that span, coming up short against Kansas City in each of those 2 occasions. We talk often about the Dallas Cowboys and their lack of playoff success since their last Super Bowl championship in 1995, and rightfully so. The Cowboys haven't even been to the NFC Championship. The Niners have been there a ton, I believe 7 or 8 appearances in that conference championship game with a couple 3 Super Bowl bids, but the Niners have not won a Lombardi trophy since 1994. By the time next season starts, that will be over 3 decades. Brock Purdy's payday is about to come because San Francisco has gotten their starting quarterback at a large discount as he was the final pick of the 2022 NFL Draft. Joe, are you surprised at all to see a $3 gap between Philadelphia, best price out of the NFC to win Super Bowl 60, and that for the Detroit Lions, who entered this postseason as the short favorites in the 1 seed in the NFC?
Yeah, so that's interesting, too, because the Lions got a lot of turnover now, right? Ben, though we've seen the truly great teams over the years, like, listen, we've seen Belichick go through this. Every coordinator eventually leaves, and they got to, reset. But that's when you had Tom Brady at quarterback. So the Lions have Jared Goff, and we saw how well in the big game he produced there. So the Lions are interesting. They've got all the talent in the world, but you know what? Just because you have all the talent in the world, Ben, doesn't mean you're going to win anything. And the Lions have to be very careful that they don't waste some opportunities in that window that they have open to them, which I think, again, is closing pretty quickly here in the NFL.
You have to give a ton of credit to Brad Holmes and what he has done as the lead exec for Detroit in the wonderful drafting he has done the last 2-3 years. But when you have a bunch of rookies and key contributors playing and producing on small deals, when you have to start to pay them, that's when things get interesting. Detroit still should have that window. We'll see what happens with the Lions moving forward. But one of the reasons that price is where it is not because Jared Goff is leaving this offseason, or they're not going to have David Montgomery / Jahmyr Gibbs, or they're going to need to reinforce the roster. Pretty much all the key players are back. It's, of course, the losses of Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn that Detroit will have to fill this offseason. They have filled, but how that production looks for the Lions moving forward into 2025. All right, we still have one game here as we get ready to end out the 2024 campaign. Now 4 days away, Super Bowl 59. Exact same odds as where they were yesterday. 1.5 in favor of Kansas City, minus 120 on the money line in favor of the Chiefs. 48.5, Joe, is that total.
Yeah, and listen, I would not be shocked. You know, we've seen over the last 24 to 48 hours, Ben, we've seen more Philadelphia love in the marketplace. We've seen some props really begin to get hammered, which is a good time to remind folks here, if you're looking to bet unders in props and nos, no rush. Wait until you can wait until Sunday, Ben, because some of these are over the top getting bet, and the numbers have skyrocketed. So if you're going to play contrarian, wait until the very end, Ben. You'll have plenty of opportunity on Sunday to get the best of the number, I promise you.
We've been doing a very similar show and trying to find every single angle to break down Super Bowl 59 really in the last week and a half. We have seen the market move here and there in terms of the total, the money line prices by a couple of cents. We have talked about some of the props that have moved on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Saquon Barkley's rushing yards number down by 3 now, 109 and a hook. Jalen Hurts' rushing yards prop down by 4 yards. His passing yards prop up by a yard, a couple of yards here and there. But really, if we were to do a show on Saturday and Sunday, that might be where we see the most movement for Super Bowl 59. The total remains the same. It is 48.5. We'll talk about some of the betting markets and the Eagles starting to close the gap in terms of the volume of bets a little bit later on. But let's head out to New Orleans. Donnie Rightside makes an appearance on the early line with Ed McCaffrey next.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Time to check in with SportsGrid Super Bowl coverage live from the Big Easy. Not exactly live, but at least from the Big Easy. Donnie right side yesterday afternoon, catching up with Ed McCaffrey, not only former Broncos player, but of course father of both Christian and Luke, who now plays for the Commanders. Here was DRS with Ed McCaffrey yesterday in New Orleans.
All right, we're live here, Super Bowl 59 from New Orleans, and I got the man, the myth, the legend right here. It's Ed McCaffrey. It's Donnie right side here, and I got to tell you, Ed, I was a 5'10", Division III wide receiver. What do you think about the profile?
You kept in pretty good shape.
Look at that, yeah.
How many years ago was that, man? Did you just, graduate a couple of years ago?
Hey, look, butter me up. I like to see it at this point right now. So, I'm 47 years old, played in the late 90s here, but I feel like we have a kinship already from wide receiver to wide receiver.
Yeah, we speak the same language.
We do, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. We got him here for a couple minutes, and certainly going to do it. 13 years in the NFL.
Yes.
How did that happen? Most
Long
people
time.
2 to 3 years.
Resilience.
Yeah.
Just didn't quit.
Yeah.
You got to overcome a lot of adversity, people telling you, you're no good, you'll never make it in the league. You got to get, in my case, I got cut from a team.
Yeah.
Had to make a team from scratch, compete against a bunch of great players who were on the team the year before. But it turned out pretty good.
No,
right? I think
did.
one of the great qualities that professional athletes who last in professional sports for a long time have is resilience.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to quit.
Yeah.
It's so easy to listen to the noise. You got to believe in yourself. You got to keep getting up, keep working hard, and keep moving forward.
I'm a Northeast guy. I'm from New Jersey. You're from Pennsylvania. How did you end up at Stanford?
We used to play Phillipsburg High School. Is that anywhere near you?
The State Liners.
Remember
right
Ned
across the road.
Boltar back in the day went to Notre Dame, a USA Today Player of the Year.
Did you cook him out there?
No, they killed. I think they beat us 48-7. But he was a really good player. Phillipsburg had 14, 16 Division I players back then. I went to Allentown Central Catholic.
Yes.
And we went 2-9 and 0-11 my senior year. But you know what? I still remember the bus rides, AC/DC.
Yeah.
Ronnie James Dio.
Yep.
Van Halen.
Yep.
We had a lot of fun. We were just not that good.
Yeah.
But the league was very good. We had the defensive player of the year, a lot of D1 players. Saquon Barkley, matter of fact, went to Whitehall High School, which is in the East Penn League.
Yep.
But I was one of, I think, 2 players that played in the Hershey game.
Big 33 was it called back then?
Big 33 game, and I think we played. Did we play Ohio State? I forget. We either rotated Ohio State, Maryland, or split it up East-West in Pennsylvania. And I think it was 1 of 2 players that left the East Coast.
Wow.
Because back then, you remember, I visited Michigan, visited Notre Dame, visited Penn State. They were all winning national championships.
Yeah.
Took another visit to Purdue, and then visited Stanford. And when I visited Stanford, we had just finished a basketball practice.
Yeah.
And I walked out to my car. And remember how cold it used to get? And my hair was icicles by the time I got down to the car. I might have had a little bit of a mullet, I'm not going to lie to you. And then I went out to visit Stanford, and it was already ranked number 1 in the country in USA, in U.S. News and World Report academically. But it was 78 degrees, driving down Palm Drive. You see the church in the background. I'm like, I just came from -40 wind chill. So in addition to being a great school academically, it's a beautiful place to live. And then Jack Elway, John Elway's dad, was my coach.
Wow.
And he recruited me along with Tom Beckett, who went on to be the AD at Yale for a long, long time. And he believed in me. And it felt good to have a coach that believed in me. As fate would have it, I played with his son John. Years later with the Denver Broncos, we'd win a couple of Super Bowls. But I didn't know that at the time. I just really respected him as a coach, really wanted to play for him, and it meant a lot to me that he believed in me.
Yeah, you come from a family of athletes, brothers, kids. We're going to get to that in just a little bit, but I'm so fascinated where you come out of college, you head to the New York Giants. What was the process like leaving college before you were drafted by the New York Giants?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a great college career in terms of making a lot of friends, having great teammates, great coaches. We did go through a coaching change. Jack Elway left and Denny Green came in.
Yes.
We had some success. I had some personal success, as an All-American. I had a lot of confidence in myself. But you got to go through that whole pro day combine routine. And I went to the Senior Bowl, played in the East-West Shrine game. Brett Favre was in the East-West Shrine game. We kind of got co-MVPs of that game. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. But then draft day came, and you see yourself slipping down the board. And I got drafted in the third round. But it was frustrating to see other players that I thought I compared pretty well to go ahead of me. But I was so excited to go to the New York Giants because they had just won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They had just beat the Buffalo Bills. They set a record for time of possession. O.J. Anderson just ground and pound.
Absolutely.
Cover 2 defense. Belichick was the D coordinator. Parcells was the head coach. And I'm like, man, I'm going to a Super Bowl champion. But then Parcells had a heart issue, supposedly, and stepped down.
Yeah.
And Ray Hanley came in there. But we were at a weird time where a lot of, who was a Stanford man and who I respected, great guy, but a lot of our older players were getting older.
Yeah.
Some guys retired. There was a quarterback controversy between Hostetler and Sims, who I loved both those guys. And we fell to 8-8.
Yeah.
Fell to 6-10. Then we had a coaching change, and a new head coach came in and cut me.
Yeah.
And so that was rough because I led the team in receiving the year before the new coach came in, and for whatever reason I wasn't in his plans. But it turned out to be a dream come true because then I went on to be on 3 Super Bowl championship teams in 5 years, and it was such a blessing. Didn't seem like it at the time.
Yeah.
My wife and I moved into a little apartment in Harmon Cove in Secaucus.
There you go. Yeah, right next to the stadium.
Secaucus, New Jersey. Right across the street. And, the Hudson would rise and fall and get that nice aroma when we did our morning runs.
Yeah.
But we just moved in. Our son Max was 2 months old, and I was writing down all my goals. You ever put your goals down, like your long-term goals, your season goals, this many catches, become a starter, yada, 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 and then you get a phone call saying they have enough receivers in camp. You got to go try out somewhere else. So I'm thinking business school, law school, I don't know what's going to go on. But I went out to the 49ers, and I'll never forget it. I was walking out to practice one day, and there's 14 receivers in camp. I'd already gone to the coach because he put me in a room with 8 other receivers in bunk beds.
Yeah.
This is the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm in bunk beds. With
George Seifert, head coach? Yep.
Great coach, by the way. 2-time Super Bowl champion head coach. But I'm like, this is my 4th year in the league. I'm not about to sleep in bunk beds. So I said, look, if you don't want me on the team, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sleep in bunk beds.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to cut me on the spot. I'm like, here we go again. But he's like, okay. And I ended up getting my own room because William Bar None Floyd was holding out.
Bar None, remember that
So I got
name.
my own room, which was pretty cool. But then I go out to practice. There's 14 receivers. They keep 4.
Yes.
That's unheard of.
Wow.
Right? And 2 of them are Jerry Rice and John Taylor.
True.
And there's 2 other guys. Nate Singleton was on the team. And so I'm competing with 14 guys. You already know 2 of the spots. And the 2 guys that were the 3 and 4 receivers the year before were in camp.
Yeah.
So it wasn't looking good. And I guess who I got to compete against? Deion Sanders.
Wow.
Every day. And
Stacked
so
roster.
I'm like, okay, it's 122 degrees in Rockland, California. I got to make a team that has all 4 of the receivers back. They're a Super Bowl championship caliber team. I'm going against Deion Sanders every day. I had a sprained ankle, and I remember walking out to practice one afternoon. I just started laughing. I'm like, man, this doesn't even matter anymore. Like, you know what? I'm going to tell my son Max that I caught a pass against Deion today in practice.
Yeah.
And I'm going to live off that story for the rest of my life.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We keep it in New Orleans. After Donnie Rightside and Ed McCaffrey finished discussing things yesterday, Kevin Walsh was there on Radio Row with Cardinals guard Will Hernandez. Let's see what those two guys had to say.
SportsGrid out here in New Orleans. Kevin Walsh with NFL offensive lineman Will Hernandez. We'll get right into it. What's going on here? Right? I mean, you're with GoDaddy. That's where the explanation lies. What can we talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, guys. So I want to introduce you to my clone here, and a lot of you may have not known this, but I actually only play half of the games.
There
and
we
he comes
go.
in the second half and plays the other. But no, so we've been fortunate enough to partner up with GoDaddy, and GoDaddy's coming out with a new AI software called Arrow, and they're using this software to help a lot of small business startups. Me being one of those. I'm starting a food truck in the city of El Paso, Texas.
Love that.
Called Mijo's Tacos. And this is one of the very first few times that I actually started talking about it. And the cool thing about GoDaddy and Arrow is that you can create, obviously it does everything from helping you build a website, helping you create a logo, all that stuff. But part of this new program as well is you get to create your own avatar. You get to create your own personal you digitally so that it could take a lot of the chores or a lot of the things that you have to do for your business.
Yeah.
Saves you time, saves you money. So, that's why we got him walking around with me today to represent that.
Yeah.
GoDaddy's doing great things with the AI world. And, they're personally helping me out, get Mijo's Tacos started as well.
We were looking around because, it's easy to spot an offensive lineman. And I'm like, I think there's another offensive lineman with him. Like, I'm not. So now we got the answer. Let's talk tacos. What's the story there?
Yeah, so I went to school in El Paso, Texas. He was actually one of my buddies that was one of my teammates, roommate, all that.
Awesome.
We're very close. And UTEP, El Paso, Texas, does not get very many NFL players. So when it does happen, it's a very big deal to the city. And so what better way to, give back and kind of create sort of the community than to bring, a business like Mijo's Tacos out there. I get a lot of love from El Paso. They support me a lot in everything that I do. They've supported my career, even though I went to the Giants.
Yep.
And El Paso's, 95% Cowboy fan. So I feel like El Paso, Texas was the right place for me to go to. I wanted to start these tacos because we're not just going to be any other taco truck. There's a bunch of Mexican food in El Paso. But what we wanted to do is create something that people can feel proud to going to, starting with food. And as you can tell, I love eating. I love good food.
Yes, sir.
So where this is going to be different for us than any other taco truck is we smoke our meats. We have special recipes. Shout out Moose's Draft House. Shout out Moose. He's going to be the one running our kitchen. And he is the one that perfected these recipes, and he smokes all the meats we're going to be using for these tacos. It's going to be a bit of a different taste. Very good one. We've been eating them since we were college kids, so we're going to get that going.
Yeah, I've always told people a bigger person is more trustworthy, and then in the food department, it's like double extra trustworthy. So that stamp of approval before I ever even try one. Now, you went to the Giants out of UTEP, right? So you did get the block for Saquon. I'm curious. All I know is the high school level, right? So it's not the same. Can you feel like in situations where your life as an offensive lineman is made easier with a running back like that behind you?
100%. So I've always said, football is the ultimate team sport, no matter what sport you're comparing it to. We all touch each other's performance. We all touch each other's money somehow, some way.
Yeah.
When you as an offensive lineman don't have to hold your block in the run game as long, or you don't have to make the hole so big because you have a running back like Saquon in the backfield, that makes your job so much easier. When you have a quarterback that can, run away and make things happen, make special plays happen, that makes your job as an offensive lineman a little bit easier as well.
Do you think then, but then it goes the other way, because it's not to take away from Saquon, right? But I think there is a prevailing notion that if he would have stayed with New York, he wasn't going to run for 2,000 this season. It's fair to say that he benefited as much playing behind Lane Johnson, Mailata, Juergens, and the rest of that crew up front?
Yeah, just like I said that, he makes offensive linemen's job easier. It's the other way around, too. When you have a very good offensive line that's been playing together for years, that's in sync, they also make his job easier.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have that perfect combination of a great running back and a great offensive line, that's exactly when you start getting things like this happening, where they make it to the Super Bowl, where they're one of the best running teams in the NFL.